He pulled me from the bridge, then revealed my father's murder wasn't an accident. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because 30 seconds before he saved my life, I was convinced I was about to die. I'll ruin you tonight. The words hit Aubrey Cole harder than the rain on the bridge. Dean's hands shoved her back. Her spine slammed into the metal rail and her heel slipped on wet asphalt. Behind her, there was only air and the sound of waves crashing far below. "Dean, stop!" she cried. "You're hurting me." "That's the point," he hissed. Vodka clung to his breath. "You think you can just walk away from me?" Cars rushed by on the other side, distant and indifferent. A cold streetlight washed Dean's face in harsh white light. His eyes were wild, jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. Aubrey tried to push him away. Her fingers were numb from cold and fear. "I told you we're done," she said, voice shaking. "We can talk tomorrow when you're sober. Just let me go home." He slammed her harder into the rail. Her body rocked over the edge. Her right heel found nothing, and the roar of the ocean rushed up at her. "Dean!" she screamed. He yanked her forward on instinct, then pinned her again. His face was inches from hers. "You're not going anywhere," he spat. "You think I don't know what you've been doing? Packing boxes, looking at new apartments across town? You leave me, you'll regret it. I promise you that." She shook her head, tears burning. "Let go of me." His hand flew and cracked across her cheek. Her head smashed into the rail. Pain exploded along her face. For a second, all she saw was white. "Say you'll stay," he growled. Her vision blurred. Metal dug into her back. The drop yawned behind her like an open mouth. "Someone will see us," she whispered. "Stop, please. We can talk about this." "Nobody cares," he snapped. "They drive by. They mind their business. You think anyone's stopping for you?" He shook her so hard her teeth rattled. Her nails dug into his wrists. Useless. What Aubrey didn't know was that someone had been watching from the moment Dean put his hands on her. And in 10 seconds, her entire life would change. Behind him, a car door shut. Heavy, expensive sound. Footsteps hit the pavement. Slow, steady, deliberate. Aubrey heard them. Dean didn't. "Help!" she screamed, throat tearing. "Please help me!" Dean's hand snapped across her face again. Her head whipped sideways. Blood filled her mouth. "I said shut!" An arm hooked around his throat from behind and ripped him away from her. His grip tore off her shoulders. Aubrey stumbled forward, grabbing the rail to keep from going over. Dean choked, fingers clawing at the arm locked under his jaw. "What the?" The man behind him was taller, broader, dark coat over what looked like an expensive suit. Solid weight and absolute control. He dragged Dean away from the edge and slammed him into a concrete post hard enough that the impact echoed. "You like putting your hands on women at the edge of a bridge?" the stranger asked, voice low and dangerous. "Get off me." Dean coughed. "You don't know what she did. This is between us." "You're right," the man said calmly. "I don't care what she did." His fist drove into Dean's stomach. Dean folded with a broken sound. Aubrey flinched. "Stop," she cried. "Please, just stop." The stranger glanced over. His eyes met hers for a second. They were deep green, sharp and calculating, too clear and controlled for this chaotic place. They flicked to her bruised cheek, the blood on her lip, the rail behind her. "You should step away from the edge," he said. "You're bleeding." Aubrey shuffled sideways until there was real pavement behind her. Her legs shook badly. Behind her, Dean swung weakly at the stranger's head. The man caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted with surgical precision, and dropped him face down on the concrete. His knee pinned Dean's back. One more clean punch to the jaw. and Dean went limp. Silence rushed in. Wind, distant engines, the rhythmic crash of waves below. The stranger stood and turned fully toward Aubrey. He looked like he was in his early 40s. Dark hair slicked back, sharp jawline with a day's stubble, a charcoal coat that fit broad shoulders like it was custom made. His knuckles were scraped and already swelling. He stopped an arm's length away and held out his hand. "Can you stand?" he asked. She nodded, then realized she was already on her feet. Her body trembled anyway. He didn't move closer until she put her hand in his. His grip was firm but careful, steady and warm. He guided her away from the rail and put himself between her and the drop. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't think anyone would stop." He glanced at Dean's unconscious form. "Most people don't want trouble." "And you do?" she asked. "I don't like watching men like him win," he said simply. Aubrey looked at Dean. He lay on his side, cheek to the concrete, chest rising and falling. "Is he?" she forced out. "Alive," the man said. "Unfortunately." "We should call an ambulance," she said quickly. "He hit his head hard. What if—" "He's fine." The stranger pulled out his phone, but he didn't call 911. He typed something, then pocketed it. "Someone will be here in 3 minutes to deal with him." "Deal with him?" Aubrey's pulse spiked. "What does that mean?" "It means you're safe now." He looked at her carefully, professionally, like he was cataloging her injuries. "You're in shock. Your cheek is already swelling, and you're going to have bruises by morning. Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" Yes, my apartment. It's not safe if he knows where you live." His tone was matter of fact, not unkind. "Does he have a key?" Aubrey's stomach dropped. "Yes." The stranger nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Then you're coming with me." "I don't even know you," she said, voice cracking. "No," he agreed. "But you know him." He gestured toward Dean. "And you know what happens if you go home tonight and he wakes up angry." Aubrey thought this was just about Dean's rage. She had no idea she'd just stepped into something far more dangerous. Behind them, headlights cut through the fog. A black SUV pulled up smoothly. No sirens, no rush. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. The stranger raised his hand slightly, some kind of signal, and they moved toward Dean without a word. "Who are you?" Aubrey whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in those sharp green eyes. Then he said, "My name is Ezra Vance, and whether you realize it yet or not, your life just became very complicated." He opened the passenger door of a sleek black sedan she hadn't even noticed was there. "Get in. We need to leave before the police show up and start asking questions neither of us wants to answer." Aubrey hesitated, every instinct screaming that getting into a stranger's car was insane. But Dean was being lifted into the SUV by men who moved like soldiers, and this stranger, Ezra Vance, had just saved her life. Sometimes, she realized with cold clarity, you had to choose between the devil you knew and the one you didn't. She got in the car. If this moment hit you the way it hit me while writing it, take a second to subscribe. It tells me you want more stories like this, and it truly helps me keep making them. Comment where you're watching from. The elevator climbed in silence. Aubrey watched the numbers tick upward, 22, 23, 24. Her reflection warped in the polished steel doors. Her cheek throbbed. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ezra Vance stood beside her, perfectly still, perfectly controlled. He'd removed his coat in the car. Beneath it, his suit was immaculate. Charcoal gray, tailored to precision. A thin gold watch caught the elevator light. Everything about him screamed money and power. The doors opened to a penthouse that took up the entire floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights spreading out like fallen stars. Modern furniture, dark leather, glass and steel. A bar cart in the corner held bottles that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Sit," Ezra said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll get ice for your face." Aubrey didn't sit. She stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself. "Who are you really?" He paused at the bar, then turned to face her fully. "I told you. Ezra Vance." "That's a name, not an answer." Her voice was steadier than she expected. "Those men who took Dean, they work for you. You made one phone call and they showed up in minutes. No questions asked. That's not normal." "No," he agreed. "It's not." He poured 2 glasses of water, added ice to one, wrapped it in a cloth napkin. When he approached, she flinched. He stopped immediately, holding out the makeshift ice pack. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. "That's what Dean used to say." She took the ice, pressed it to her cheek. The cold burned. "Before tonight, I mean. Before everything changed." "I'm not Dean." "Then what are you?" Ezra's jaw tightened. He set the water glass on the coffee table and then moved to the windows. His hands slid into his pockets, a casual gesture that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. "I run a security consulting firm," he said. "Legitimate, on paper. We protect high-value clients, handle sensitive asset transfers, provide risk management for people who can't trust traditional channels." "That's a very elaborate way of not answering my question." He turned back to her. The city lights behind him cast his face in shadow. "You want the truth?" "Yes. I'm what people call a businessman with complicated interests. Some of those interests operate in gray areas. Some operate in darker places than that." His voice was calm, factual. "I have connections to organized crime in this city. I broker deals, resolve disputes, move money that can't be moved through banks. I'm not a saint, Aubrey. But I'm also not a monster." Her stomach dropped. "You're a mobster." "I'm a lot of things. That's one of them. And you just told me that. Just like that." She laughed, but it came out broken. "Don't people who know things like that usually end up dead?" Ezra crossed the room in 3 strides. He stopped close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "I told you because you deserve to know what you're walking into. And because if I wanted you dead, you'd already be gone. I don't take what isn't offered, Aubrey. That includes silence." She should run. She should scream. She should do anything except stand here, staring at a man who'd just admitted to being a criminal. Instead, she whispered, "Why did you help me?" Something shifted in his expression, something almost human beneath the cold control. "Because men like Dean don't stop. They escalate. And I don't like watching people get hurt when I can prevent it. Even strangers? Especially strangers. They don't owe me anything yet." The word "yet" hung between them like a threat and a promise. What Aubrey was about to learn would shatter everything she thought she knew about her own life. Aubrey sank onto the couch, exhaustion crashing over her. "I don't understand any of this. Tonight was supposed to be simple. I was going to tell Dean it was over, pack my things, and disappear. Start fresh somewhere he'd never find me. And instead, you nearly went over a bridge." Ezra sat across from her, forearms resting on his knees. What changed? Why did he snap tonight? "I don't know. He's been getting worse for months. Jealous, controlling. But tonight..." She touched her swollen cheek. "Tonight he was different. Angrier. Like he knew something I didn't." Ezra's eyes sharpened. What did he say? Exactly. That I belonged to him. That if I left the city, I'd leave with him or not at all. Her voice cracked. He's never been that direct before. It was like he was delivering a message, not just being Dean. Because he was. Ezra stood abruptly, pulling his phone from his pocket. He typed rapidly, then made a call. Preston, I need you to run a full background on Dean Hollis. Employment, finances, associates, everything. And flag any connections to Gideon Fox's network. He paused. Yes, Fox, I'll explain later. 30 minutes. He ended the call and looked at Aubrey. The warmth was gone. In its place was something cold and calculating, the face of a man who'd built an empire in the shadows. What's going on? Aubrey asked. Dean didn't try to kill you because you were leaving him, Ezra said. He tried to kill you because someone told him to. The penthouse seemed to tilt. That's insane. Dean's not... He's just a guy. An abusive asshole, but he's not connected to organized crime. He works in IT. People who work in IT can be bought just like anyone else, especially when they're desperate. Ezra's voice was hard. You're going to tell me everything about your life, Aubrey. Your job, your family, your friends. Any reason someone might want to hurt you beyond a bad breakup. There's nothing. I'm a paralegal. I keep my head down, pay my bills, and try not to get noticed. I'm nobody. Nobody doesn't get targeted on a bridge by a man taking orders. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. Think, Aubrey. Family connections? Debts? Enemies? I don't have family. My mom died when I was 12. My dad... Her throat closed. My dad died 2 years ago. How? Car accident. Hit and run. They never found who did it. Tears burned her eyes. Why does that matter? Ezra's expression darkened. What did your father do for a living? He was an accountant. Corporate stuff. Boring spreadsheets and tax filings. What kind of corporations? The question was sharp as a blade. Aubrey flinched. I don't know. He didn't talk about work much. After Mom died, he buried himself in it. We barely spoke the last few years. What came next would connect her father's death to the man who'd just tried to kill her on that bridge. Ezra's phone buzzed. He read the screen, and his jaw tightened. Preston's preliminary sweep just came back. Dean Hollis received 3 payments in the last 2 months from a shell company registered in the Caymans. Total of $15,000. The company's real owner is buried under 6 layers of holding corporations, but Preston traced it back to one name. He looked up. Gideon Fox. The name meant nothing to Aubrey. Who's that? A rival. Someone I've been in conflict with for the better part of a decade. Ezra's voice was ice. And apparently, someone who's very interested in you. But I've never even heard of him. You wouldn't have. Fox operates through intermediates and shell games. He owns half the port, runs smuggling operations through legitimate freight companies, and launders money through real estate developments. Ezra's eyes bore into hers. He's also extremely thorough. If he paid Dean to hurt you, it's because you have something he wants, or you know something he can't afford to let surface. Aubrey's mind raced. I don't have anything. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with secondhand furniture. My bank account has $1,200. I'm nobody. Your father was an accountant. Ezra's tone shifted, still hard, but now threaded with something else. Understanding. What if he wasn't as boring as you thought? What if he saw something he shouldn't have? Found something he couldn't ignore? He would have told me. Would he? If it put you in danger? Ezra moved to the windows again, his silhouette framed by the city. 2 years ago, one of Fox's largest shell companies collapsed overnight. Someone flagged it to federal regulators with a detailed forensic breakdown of how money was moving through fake subsidiaries. Fox lost close to $40 million and spent 6 months dodging indictments. Aubrey's breath caught. You think my father? I think your father found something, reported it, and paid for that decision with his life. Ezra turned. And I think Fox just realized you might have access to whatever evidence your father kept as insurance. That's why Dean was paid to kill you tonight. You're not collateral damage, Aubrey. You're a loose end. The room spun. Aubrey pressed her palms to her eyes, but it didn't stop the memories flooding back. Her father's paranoia in his final months, the way he'd insisted she memorize a safety deposit box number, just in case. The cryptic voicemail he'd left 3 days before he died. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone, especially not the people who say they're trying to help. Oh God, she whispered. He knew. He knew someone was coming for him. Did he leave you anything? Files, passwords, keys? A safety deposit box. He made me memorize the number, but I never opened it. After he died, I couldn't. She looked up at Ezra. You think whatever's in there is what Fox wants? I think it's what's keeping you alive. As long as Fox believes you might have access to evidence, he'll try to take you alive. The moment he's certain you don't. Ezra didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Aubrey's hands trembled. What do I do? You stay here tonight. Tomorrow, I move you somewhere Fox can't reach. Then we open that box and see what your father left behind. Ezra's voice softened slightly. You're not alone in this anymore, Aubrey. I don't let people like Fox win. Not on my watch. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you care? You don't know me. I'm just some random woman you saved on a bridge. Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I know what it's like to lose someone to men like Fox. And because once I pull someone out of the water, I don't throw them back in. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, then nodded. Preston's downstairs with a medic. She'll check your injuries, give you something for the pain. Guest room is down the hall, second door on the left. You'll be safe here tonight. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we disappear. But Fox was already moving faster than either of them realized. The hunt had already begun. The safe house was nothing like the penthouse. It sat on a quiet street in a neighborhood that looked like it had been built in the 70s and forgotten. Single story, beige stucco, a brown lawn struggling in the heat. The kind of place you'd drive past without a second glance. Inside, it was sparse but functional. A couch with faded cushions, a small kitchen with laminate counters, 2 bedrooms with basic furniture. The windows had bars. The doors had deadbolts, 3 on each. This is it? Aubrey set her bag on the couch. Ezra had sent someone to her apartment in the middle of the night to pack essentials. She hadn't been allowed to go herself. This is it, Ezra confirmed. He moved through the space with practiced efficiency, checking locks, testing windows. Untraceable lease, registered to a shell company that doesn't connect to me. Neighbors mind their business. No cameras on the street. It's a prison. It's a sanctuary. He turned to face her. Fox has eyes everywhere, Aubrey. My penthouse was secure for one night. But he'll know by now that I pulled you out of play. He'll be looking. This place keeps you invisible. She sank onto the couch. Through the barred window, she could see a neighbor's chain-link fence and a dog sleeping in the shade. Is this my life now? Hiding in safe houses, looking over my shoulder? Ezra sat across from her, forearms on his knees. The morning light was harsh through the thin curtains, showing the exhaustion in his face. He'd been up all night coordinating her protection. It won't stay like this, he said. How can you promise that? Because I'm going to end this. Today. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. That's the address of your father's bank. The safety deposit box is registered under his name, but you're listed as the heir with access rights. We're going to open it, see what's inside, and then I'm going to use it to bury Gideon Fox so deep he never surfaces again. Aubrey unfolded the paper. Her father's careful handwriting stared back at her, the box number he'd made her memorize written in his hand. You went through his records. Preston did, last night. Ezra's voice was steady. I don't move without knowing every piece on the board, Aubrey. That includes what your father left behind. And if there's nothing in the box, if it's just personal things, or nothing at all, then we pivot. But I don't think it's nothing. Ezra leaned back, his sharp eyes never leaving hers. Your father was meticulous enough to hide his trail for 2 years. He wouldn't have made you memorize a number for sentiment. She wanted to argue, but he was right. Her father had been practical to a fault. Every action had a purpose. When do we go? She asked. In 2 hours. Preston will drive you. I'll follow separately to make sure you're not tailed. He stood, his presence filling the small room. Until then, you stay inside. Don't answer the door. Don't go near the windows. Don't call anyone. For 2 hours, I'm a prisoner. For 2 hours, you're alive. His tone was blunt. Fox wants you dead, Aubrey. The only thing stopping him is not knowing where you are. Let's keep it that way. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's food in the fridge. Basics, but enough. TV works. Books on the shelf if you need distraction. Ezra. She stood. Thank you. For all of this. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or something softer he didn't want to show. Don't thank me yet. This gets worse before it gets better. How much worse? We're about to take on one of the most dangerous men in the city using evidence from a dead accountant. If we're wrong, or if the files aren't enough, Fox will come at us with everything he has. Ezra's green eyes were cold with certainty. So yeah, a lot worse. The door closed behind him with a heavy finality. Through the window, Aubrey watched his black sedan pull away, disappearing into the morning traffic. She was alone in a stranger's safe house, hiding from a mobster she'd never met, protected by another mobster she barely knew. 2 days ago, her biggest problem had been leaving an abusive boyfriend. Now she was caught in a war she didn't understand, armed with nothing but a dead man's secrets and the fragile promise that it wouldn't always be like this. She sat on the couch and waited for Preston Reed to arrive. The 2 hours felt like 20. What they would find in that safety deposit box would put a target on both their backs. And they had no idea Fox was already 10 steps ahead. Preston Reed was nothing like Ezra. Where Ezra was all sharp edges and controlled intensity, Preston was warm and easy. Tall, dark-skinned, with a quick smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He wore a casual button-down and jeans, looking more like someone's favorite cousin than a mobster's right-hand man. You must be Aubrey, he said when she opened the door. He held up his phone, showing her a photo ID. Preston Reed, Ezra sent me. She stepped aside to let him in. He said you'd drive me to the bank. That's the plan. Cars out front, gray Honda, nothing flashy. He glanced around the safe house with professional efficiency. You doing okay? I know this is a lot. I'm still breathing. That's something. Preston's smile softened into something genuine. Ezra's good at keeping people alive. Best I've seen. If he says you're safe, you're safe. Even from Gideon Fox? Especially from Fox. Preston moved to the window, checking the street. Those two have been circling each other for years. This is just the excuse Ezra's been waiting for to end it. I'm an excuse? You're a person who deserves protection. The excuse is that Fox came after someone under Ezra's watch. Preston turned back to her. In our world, that's a declaration of war. Fox knows it. He made his move anyway. Now Ezra gets to respond. Aubrey grabbed her purse. Small, plain, holding nothing but her ID and her father's bank information. Let's go before I lose my nerve. The drive took 20 minutes. Preston kept up easy conversation, asking about her job, her apartment, anything to keep her mind off what they were about to do. She found herself almost relaxing despite everything. The bank was small, local, the kind of place her father would have chosen for its anonymity. Preston parked on the street and turned to her. I'll wait here. You go in, open the box, take whatever's inside. Don't read it, don't examine it. Just take it and come back. We're exposed every second you're in there. What if someone's watching? Then I handle it. But Aubrey? His easy warmth vanished, replaced by something harder. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you walk out and we leave. Don't be a hero. She nodded and got out of the car. The bank's interior was dated. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, worn carpet. A tired-looking woman at the front desk barely glanced up when Aubrey approached. I need to access a safety deposit box, Aubrey said. It's under my father's name. I'm the listed heir. The woman sighed and held out her hand. ID and box number. Aubrey provided both. The woman typed slowly into an ancient computer, then nodded. Follow me. The vault was in the back, behind a heavy door that required 2 keys. The woman unlocked it, gestured Aubrey inside, then stepped out. You've got 15 minutes. Knock when you're done. The door closed with a hollow boom. Aubrey stood alone in the vault, surrounded by rows of metal boxes. Her father's was near the bottom, number 2847, the digits she'd memorized 3 years ago and never understood. Her hands shook as she inserted the key. The box slid out smoothly. Inside was a single manila envelope, thick with papers. No note, no explanation. She grabbed it and knocked on the door. The woman let her out without comment. Aubrey walked through the bank as calmly as she could, envelope tucked under her arm, heart hammering. Preston saw her coming and started the engine. She climbed in, and he pulled away from the curb immediately. Got it? He asked. Yes. Good. We're taking the long way back. Make sure we're not followed. Ezra's meeting us at the safe house in an hour. Aubrey clutched the envelope to her chest. Inside were her father's secrets, the evidence that had gotten him killed and put her in the crosshairs of a man she'd never met. Whatever was in here, it was about to change everything. But they weren't taking the long way back, because Fox's people had just found them. Preston's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and answered. Yeah? A pause. His expression darkened. When? Another pause. Got it. On our way. He ended the call and accelerated, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. Change of plans. What's wrong? Ezra's pulling you from the safe house. Fox's people just hit one of our secondary locations, a warehouse we use for storage. They're escalating faster than expected. Preston's jaw was tight. He wants you moved to a secured facility until we can figure out Fox's endgame. Where? Better you don't know yet. Just trust me, okay? Aubrey watched the streets blur past. Do I have a choice? Not really. But for what it's worth, Ezra doesn't lose. Fox is about to learn that the hard way. They drove in silence for 10 more minutes, taking turns and doubling back until Aubrey was completely lost. Finally, Preston pulled into an underground garage beneath a nondescript office building. We're here, he said, killing the engine. Elevator to the 3rd floor. Ezra's waiting. They took the elevator up. The 3rd floor was a single large space. Exposed brick, industrial lighting, minimal furniture. Ezra stood by the windows, phone to his ear, his voice low and clipped. When he saw them, he ended the call. "You got it?" he asked Aubrey. She held up the envelope. "Everything in the box." "Good." He gestured to a table. "Open it. Let's see what we're working with." Aubrey's fingers fumbled with the envelope's clasp. Inside were dozens of pages, financial records, spreadsheets, scanned documents with highlighted sections, and a handwritten note on top in her father's careful script. "To whoever finds this, the attached documents prove systemic fraud and money laundering through Fox Holdings and its subsidiary companies. I've flagged the accounts to federal regulators, but I know they'll bury this. Gideon Fox has too many people in his pocket. If I'm dead, it means he found out. Use this to finish what I started. And keep Aubrey safe. She's all I have left." Aubrey's vision blurred. Her father had known. He'd known he was going to die, and he'd tried to protect her anyway. Ezra picked up the documents, scanning them with sharp efficiency. "This is solid. Transaction records, shell company structures, falsified tax filings. More than enough to bring federal charges." He looked up at Preston. "How fast can we get this to the right people?" "Depends on who we trust. If Fox has agents on his payroll." "He does," Ezra interrupted. "Which means we go outside normal channels. I know someone at the Financial Crimes Unit who owes me. I'll make the call tonight." "And Fox?" Aubrey asked. "What happens to him?" "With this evidence, he's looking at 20 years minimum. The feds will freeze his assets, dismantle his operations, and make sure he never sees daylight again." Ezra's voice was cold with satisfaction. "Your father got him, Aubrey. We just have to deliver the final blow." But Fox had one more move, and it was about to put all of them in immediate danger. Preston's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. "Boss, we've got a problem." Ezra turned. "What?" "The safe house. Someone just tripped the perimeter alarm." Preston's hand moved to the gun at his hip. "They found her." Everything happened fast. Ezra grabbed Aubrey's arm and pulled her toward the back of the space. "Preston, lock it down. Nobody gets up here." "On it." Preston moved to the elevator, drawing his weapon. "How did they find me?" Aubrey's voice cracked. "You said it was untraceable." "It was." Ezra's jaw was tight. "Which means we have a leak. Someone on my team talked." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. But it wasn't Fox's men. It was Preston. Or someone who looked exactly like him. Same height, same build, same easy smile. Except the real Preston was still standing beside Ezra, gun drawn. "Shit," Preston whispered. "They sent a double." The fake Preston raised his hands, still smiling. "Easy, everyone. I'm just here to deliver a message from Mr. Fox." His eyes found Aubrey. "He wants to talk. Just her. Nobody else gets hurt." "Not happening," Ezra said flatly. "Then people start dying. Starting with the real Preston Reed." The double pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward them. On it was live video of a warehouse, the same one Preston had mentioned earlier. And tied to a chair in the center was another man who looked exactly like Preston, bloodied and barely conscious. "3 of him?" Preston muttered. Fox went all in. The double's smile widened. "Mr. Fox is a thorough man. He's been watching you for weeks, Ezra. He knows your operation inside and out. He knows you'd never trade the girl for one hostage. So he made sure to take enough pieces off the board that you'd have no choice." Ezra's gun didn't waver. "Tell Fox he can go to hell." "You can tell him yourself." Midnight. Pier 17. You bring the girl and the files. He brings Preston and walks away. Everyone lives. The double tilted his head. Or you refuse, and he starts sending Preston back to you in pieces. Your call. The elevator doors closed before anyone could stop him. Silence filled the space. Ezra lowered his gun slowly, his expression murderous. Preston, verify your team. Now. I want to know who talked. Already on it. Preston made a call, his voice clipped and professional despite the fact that his double was being tortured somewhere across the city. Aubrey sank into a chair, the envelope of evidence clutched in her hands. This is my fault. If I hadn't opened that box... This was always going to happen, Ezra interrupted. Fox doesn't leave loose ends. The moment your father flagged those accounts, you became a target. Opening the box just moved up the timeline. So what do we do? You can't actually trade me? Ezra looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, I'm not trading you. I'm giving Fox exactly what he wants. The files, the girl, and a clean exchange. He checked his watch. And while he's focused on that, I'm going to burn his entire operation to the ground. You have a plan, Preston said. It wasn't a question. I always have a plan. Ezra moved to the table and spread out the documents. Fox thinks he's won because he has leverage, but he made a mistake. He gave us a location and a timeline. That's all I need. To do what? Aubrey asked. Ezra's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. To end this. Tonight. What Aubrey didn't know was that Ezra's plan would require her to walk straight into Fox's trap. And the only way out was through. The safe house door crashed open at exactly 7:43 p.m. Aubrey had been sitting on the couch staring at the wall, replaying every decision that had led to this moment. She'd sent Ezra and Preston away an hour ago, insisting she needed time alone to process everything. That had been a mistake. The men who came through the door wore dark tactical gear, their faces covered. 3 of them, moving with military precision. The first one grabbed her before she could scream, a gloved hand clamping over her mouth. Don't fight, he said calmly. Mr. Fox just wants to talk. You come quiet, you don't get hurt. She bit down hard on his hand. He swore and backhanded her across the face. Her vision exploded in white. When it cleared, she was being dragged toward a black SUV parked in the driveway. One of the neighbors glanced out their window, saw what was happening, and immediately closed the curtains. Nobody was coming to help. They threw her into the back seat. Someone zip-tied her wrists. The SUV pulled away, tires screeching, and Aubrey's last thought before the hood came down over her head was that Ezra had been right. It had gotten so much worse. But what Fox didn't know was that Ezra had been counting on this exact moment. The game was just beginning. When the hood came off, Aubrey was in a warehouse, concrete floors, metal rafters, the smell of rust and old oil. A single work light illuminated the space, casting harsh shadows, and sitting in a chair 10 feet away, looking perfectly relaxed, was a man in an expensive suit. Gideon Fox was older than she'd expected, maybe late 50s, with silver hair and a face that would have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. He smiled when he saw her awake. Miss Cole, I'm sorry for the rough treatment. My men can be overzealous. Aubrey's hands were still zip-tied behind her. She was in a metal folding chair, her ankles bound to the legs. What do you want? Straight to business. I like that. Fox stood and walked a slow circle around her. I want what your father stole from me. The files he gave to the feds. The evidence he spent 2 years compiling to ruin me. I don't have them. No, but Ezra Vance does. And he's remarkably protective of you. Fox stopped in front of her. Which gives me leverage. Something I've lacked in my dealings with Mr. Vance for quite some time. So this is about him, not me. Everything is about Ezra Vance. Fox's voice turned bitter. He's been a thorn in my side for a decade, stealing my contracts, interfering with my operations, acting like he's some kind of moral authority in a business that has no morals. But tonight, that ends. Tonight, he brings me those files, and I disappear. Quietly, cleanly, with enough money to live very comfortably somewhere the feds can't touch me. And if he doesn't? Fox smiled. Then I kill you and mail him the video. Either way, I win. Footsteps echoed from the far side of the warehouse. One of Fox's men approached, holding a phone. "Sir, Vance is calling." Fox took the phone and put it on speaker. "Ezra. How good of you to check in." "Let her go." Ezra's voice came through cold and flat. "This is between us. It stopped being between us when you pulled her off that bridge. You made her your problem. Now she's your liability." Fox gestured, and one of his men yanked Aubrey's head back by her hair. She gasped in pain. "Hear that? She's alive, for now. You bring me the files by midnight, and she stays that way." "I'll bring them. Pier 17, 1 hour." "Excellent. And Ezra, come alone. I'll know if you bring your people. You so much as whisper to the cops and I'll know. Then things get messy." "Understood." The line went dead. Fox handed the phone back to his man and smiled down at Aubrey. "See? Wasn't that easy? In 1 hour, this nightmare is over. You go home, I disappear, and Ezra gets to play hero one more time before his empire collapses." "What do you mean?" Aubrey's voice was raw. "You think I'm the only one who's been watching him? The moment those files surface, the feds will start asking questions. And when they dig into Ezra's operations, they'll find connections, money trails, witnesses I've already bought and paid for." Fox's smile widened. "I'm not the only one going down, Miss Cole. I'm just making sure I take him with me." Aubrey's stomach turned. "You're framing him." "I'm giving the prosecutors exactly what they want. A bigger fish. Ezra Vance, the ghost of this city's underworld, finally exposed and ruined." Fox checked his watch. 57 minutes. "I suggest you spend them praying he actually shows up." He walked away, disappearing into the shadows. His men stayed close, watching her with flat, professional eyes. Aubrey closed her eyes and tried to breathe. Ezra was walking into a trap. Even if he brought the files, Fox would kill them both. And if the feds did show up, Ezra would go down with Fox. There was no way out. She tested the zip ties. Tight, no give. Her ankles were the same, bound so tightly the plastic bit into her skin. But the chair was old. The metal legs creaked when she shifted. It wasn't much, but it was something. She started working the chair legs back and forth, slowly, quietly, while Fox's men talked among themselves and the clock ticked down toward midnight. 57 minutes. That's all the time Ezra had to execute the most dangerous plan of his life. And one wrong move would destroy everything. Ezra Vance walked into the warehouse at 11:58 p.m. He was alone, hands empty, wearing the same dark coat and suit from the bridge. No gun visible. No backup. Just him and the cold certainty that he was about to either win or die. Fox stood in the center of the space, lit by work lights his men had set up. Aubrey was tied to a chair 20 feet away, her face bruised but her eyes sharp. "Right on time," Fox said. "You brought the files?" Ezra held up a USB drive. "Everything. Transaction records, shell company breakdowns, falsified filings. Enough to bury you 10 times over." "And the physical copies?" "Destroyed. This is the only thing left." Ezra's voice was steady. "Let her walk. Then it's yours." Fox laughed. "You think I'm an idiot? The moment she walks, you destroy that drive or trigger some backup plan. No, you give me the drive first." Then I decide if she walks. That's not the deal. I'm renegotiating. Fox snapped his fingers, and one of his men grabbed Aubrey's arm, yanking her to her feet. Ezra moved before anyone could blink. He crossed the space in 3 strides, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted. Bone cracked. The man screamed and dropped. Ezra caught Aubrey with his other arm and pulled her behind him, his voice low and deadly. Don't touch her. Guns came up, 5 of Fox's men, all aimed at Ezra. Fox held up a hand, stopping them. Stand down. Let's all stay calm. He smiled, but his eyes were ice. Impressive reflexes, Ezra, but you're outnumbered and outgunned. Give me the drive, or my men open fire and you both die here. Ezra's hand went to his pocket. Every gun tracked the movement. He pulled out the USB drive slowly and held it up. You want this? Fine, but first, I want to make sure we understand each other. Enlighten me, Fox said. What Ezra said next would either save them both or sign their death warrants. You think you've won because you have guns and numbers. You think I walked in here alone because I'm desperate or stupid. Ezra's voice was calm, almost conversational. But the truth is, I walked in here alone because I wanted you to feel confident, comfortable, like you were in control. Fox's smile faltered slightly. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that this warehouse is surrounded, not by my people, by the FBI. 20 agents with warrants for your arrest. They've been in position for the last 30 minutes waiting for my signal. You're bluffing. Am I? Ezra held up his phone. On the screen was a text thread with someone named Agent Morrison. The last message read, "In position, on your signal." Fox's face went pale. You brought the cops. You actually brought the cops. I brought justice, Ezra corrected. Something you've been running from for 2 decades. Your shell companies, your money laundering operations, your smuggling networks. All of it is documented in files that are currently being delivered to the Financial Crimes Unit. By dawn, every federal agency with an acronym will be kicking down your doors. You son of a... Fox lunged forward, but his men grabbed him, holding him back. Ezra's expression didn't change. The deal was always this. You get arrested, or you get killed. I gave you the option to walk away, and you chose to escalate. So now you get option 2. Boss, one of Fox's men hissed. We need to move. Now. But it was too late. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the warehouse's high windows. A megaphone boomed from outside. FBI, the building is surrounded. Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up. Fox's men looked at each other, panic spreading. 2 of them dropped their guns immediately and put their hands up. The others hesitated, looking to Fox for orders. Fox's face twisted with rage. You destroyed everything. My operations. My money. Your life built on stolen wealth and dead bodies, Ezra finished. Yeah, I destroyed it. And I'd do it again. But there was one man in that warehouse who wasn't going down quietly. And he was about to make his last, desperate move. One of Fox's men, Dean Hollis, Aubrey realized with shock, suddenly broke from the group and raised his gun. Not at Ezra, at her. If I'm going down, she's coming with me. Dean's eyes were wild, his hands shaking. He'd been Fox's plant all along, the pawn who'd nearly killed her on the bridge. Ezra moved. He shoved Aubrey to the ground and charged Dean in the same motion. The gun went off, a deafening crack in the enclosed space. Aubrey screamed, but Ezra didn't fall. He crashed into Dean with the force of a freight train, driving him into the concrete floor. 1 punch, 2. Dean's gun skittered away. On the 3rd punch, Dean went limp. The warehouse doors exploded inward. FBI agents poured in, tactical gear, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Fox's remaining men dropped their guns and got on the ground. Fox himself stood frozen, his hands slowly rising. An agent grabbed him, spun him around, and cuffed him. Gideon Fox, you're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges we'll add as we go. Fox looked at Ezra one last time. This isn't over. Yeah, Ezra said quietly. It is. They dragged Fox away. Other agents moved through the warehouse, securing the scene, calling for medical. One of them, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a badge that read Morrison, approached Ezra. Vance, you delivered. She glanced at Aubrey. She okay? She will be. Ezra knelt beside Aubrey and cut the zip ties on her wrists with a knife he'd pulled from his boot. You hurt? Aubrey shook her head, too stunned to speak. Her wrists were raw, her face ached, but she was alive. They were both alive. Morrison pulled Ezra aside. The deal stands. Fox goes down, and we pretend tonight never happened. But Vance, you pull something like this again, and I won't be so forgiving. Understood. Ezra's voice was flat. Are we done? For now. Morrison walked away, barking orders at her team. Ezra returned to Aubrey and helped her stand. Her legs shook so badly she nearly fell. He caught her, his arms solid around her waist. It's over, he said quietly. Fox is done. Dean's done. You're safe. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You traded your whole operation to save me. I traded pieces I can rebuild. You can't be replaced. But the FBI, Morrison said, I made a deal. Fox goes down, and they forget certain details about how tonight went down. I gave them the bigger fish. They're happy. Ezra's expression softened slightly. And I made it out clean. Nothing about this is clean, Aubrey whispered. No, he agreed. But it's done. And you get to go home. Agents were leading the last of Fox's men out in cuffs. Dean was conscious now, being dragged toward a waiting vehicle. He looked at Aubrey as he passed, his face blank and empty. She felt nothing. No anger, no fear, just exhaustion. An EMT approached with a first aid kit. Ma'am, we need to check you out. Aubrey nodded and let them guide her to an ambulance parked outside. The night air was cold and sharp, clearing her head. She sat on the back bumper while the EMT examined her wrists and face, asking questions she answered automatically. Ezra stood nearby, talking in low tones with Morrison. Whatever deal he'd made, it had cost him. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his jaw was set. When the EMT finished and walked away, Ezra approached. They want to take you to the hospital. Standard procedure. I don't need a hospital. You need rest, and safety, and time to process everything that just happened. He sat beside her on the bumper. I have a place outside the city. Quiet. Secure. You can stay as long as you need. And then what? I just go back to my life? Pretend none of this happened? If that's what you want. Aubrey looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd saved her on a bridge, protected her from a mobster's revenge, and dismantled an empire to keep her alive. What do you want, Ezra? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I want you to be safe. That's all I've wanted since the moment I pulled you off that rail. And what about you? Are you safe? His smile was bitter. I'm never safe. That's the life I chose. Then why did you do all this? Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Ezra's green eyes met hers. And for the first time, she saw something other than control and calculation. She saw exhaustion, regret, and something that looked almost like hope. "Because you reminded me that not everything has to be broken," he said quietly. "And because I'm tired of being the man who only knows how to destroy things." Aubrey's throat tightened. She reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold, scraped from the fight, but they closed around hers with surprising gentleness. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over." Morrison said Fox is going down, but his network is bigger than one man. There will be fallout, questions, people looking for revenge. Ezra's voice was steady, but his grip on her hand tightened slightly. "I meant what I said earlier. You stay in my protection until I'm sure every loose end is tied up." "How long will that take?" "Weeks, maybe months." He looked at her seriously. "I know that's asking a lot, but I can't let you walk away until I know you're truly safe." Aubrey should have said no. Should have insisted on going home, rebuilding her life, putting all of this behind her. Instead, she said, "Okay." Relief flickered across Ezra's face. "Okay." Morrison called his name from across the lot. Ezra squeezed Aubrey's hand once, then stood. "Stay here. I'll be back in 5 minutes." She watched him walk away, his dark coat swirling in the night breeze. Around her, agents processed the scene, loaded evidence, took statements. The warehouse where she'd nearly died was now just another crime scene being documented and cataloged. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd forgotten she still had it. The screen showed 3 missed calls from her coworker and 2 texts asking if she was okay. Her old life, already feeling distant and unreal. She typed a quick response. "I'm fine. Long story. I'll explain tomorrow." But she knew she wouldn't. Some things couldn't be explained. Some nights couldn't be reduced to casual conversation over coffee. Ezra returned exactly 5 minutes later. "Let's go. I'll take you to the safe location. We can sort everything else out tomorrow." Aubrey stood, her body aching but her mind strangely calm. "Lead the way." They walked to his car together, leaving the chaos of the warehouse behind. As Ezra started the engine and pulled onto the empty street, Aubrey looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. Somewhere out there, Gideon Fox was being processed into federal custody. Dean was facing attempted murder charges. And she was sitting in a mobster's car, driving toward an unknown future. But for the first time in days, maybe years, she felt safe. Even if that safety came with a price she didn't fully understand yet. 3 months would pass before Aubrey learned the truth about what Ezra had really given up to save her. And by then, it would be too late to turn back. 3 months later, Aubrey stood in her new apartment and marveled at how quiet her life had become. The place was small. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with windows that overlooked a tree-lined street. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. Truly hers. Paid for with her own money, furnished with secondhand finds and careful budgeting. No men breaking down her door. No death threats. No federal agents asking follow-up questions. Just quiet. Gideon Fox was awaiting trial, held without bail in a federal detention center. The charges against him had multiplied as investigators dug deeper. Racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, attempted murder. His lawyers were already negotiating a plea deal, but the prosecutors weren't interested. They wanted him buried. Dean Hollis had taken a plea deal. 20 years for attempted murder and conspiracy. He'd be an old man before he saw freedom again. And Ezra Vance had vanished from her life as cleanly as he'd entered it. For the first month after Fox's arrest, Ezra had checked in daily. Phone calls, brief texts, making sure she was adjusting. Then the calls became weekly. Then they stopped altogether. Aubrey told herself it was better this way. Their worlds were too different. He'd saved her life, but that didn't mean they belonged in each other's futures. Still, she thought about him more than she wanted to admit. She was making dinner, pasta, nothing fancy, when the knock came at her door. She checked the peephole. Her breath caught. Ezra Vance stood in the hallway, wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater instead of his usual suit. He looked tired, human. The hard edges she remembered had softened somehow. She opened the door. Ezra. Aubrey. He smiled slightly. Can I come in? She stepped aside. He entered, glancing around the apartment with the same assessing gaze he'd used that first night in his penthouse. Nice place. It's small, but it's mine. She closed the door. What are you doing here? I wanted to check on you, make sure you were okay. I'm fine. Haven't heard from Fox's people. No threats, no problems. She crossed her arms. You didn't have to come all the way here for that. You could have called. I could have. Ezra moved to the window, looking out at the street. But I wanted to see you. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Why? He turned to face her. Because I haven't stopped thinking about you since the night we met. And because I needed to know if you felt the same. Aubrey's heart hammered. Ezra, I know this is complicated. I know I'm not the kind of man you probably imagined ending up with. But over the last 3 months, I've done a lot of thinking. About my life. About what I want from it. He took a step closer. I've started shutting down my illegal operations. Cleaning house. Going legitimate. Why? Because I realized I was tired of living in the shadows. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of being the man everyone feared but nobody trusted. His green eyes were intense. Vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. And because I wanted to be someone you could actually have a future with. Aubrey's breath caught. You're doing all this for me? I'm doing it for us. If you want there to be an us. She should have said no. Should have told him it was too soon. Too complicated. Too dangerous. Instead, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. Ezra responded immediately, his arms coming around her, pulling her close. The kiss was hungry and desperate, 3 months of separation and uncertainty pouring into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aubrey whispered, Are you sure about this? Giving up your empire? I already gave it up, Ezra said. The moment I walked into that warehouse for you. Everything after that was just logistics. What do you do now, if you're not that anymore? I'm investing in legitimate businesses. Real estate, security consulting, venture capital. Boring, legal, no feds breathing down my neck. He smiled slightly. It's not as exciting as my old life, but it's sustainable. And it means I get to sleep at night without wondering which enemy is coming for me. Aubrey traced the line of his jaw with her fingers. And you're sure you won't miss it? The power, the control? I'm sure I won't miss watching good people get hurt because of my choices. His expression sobered. I've done terrible things, Aubrey. Things I can't take back. But I can try to do better going forward. With you, if you'll let me. She kissed him again, softer this time. I'll let you. They stood there in her small apartment, wrapped around each other, while the evening light faded through the windows. Outside, the city moved on, cars passing, people walking, lives being lived. Inside, 2 people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances chose to build something better. Stay for dinner, Aubrey said. It's just pasta, nothing fancy. But stay. Ezra smiled. A real smile. Warm and genuine. I'd like that. They moved to the kitchen together, and Aubrey felt something settle in her chest. Not quite peace. Not yet. But the beginning of it. She'd started this story running from an abusive boyfriend, terrified and alone. She was ending it with a man who'd dismantled an empire to keep her safe, who'd chosen her quiet life over the power he'd spent decades building. It wasn't the future she'd imagined. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the best futures were the ones you built from the wreckage of what came before, with someone who understood that broken things could still be beautiful. Ezra set the table while she finished cooking. They ate together in comfortable silence, neither of them needing to fill the space with words. And when the meal was done and the dishes were cleared, Ezra pulled her close and said, "I know we have a lot to figure out, but I'm not going anywhere. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Aubrey pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong and steady and real. "Together," she agreed. Outside, the night deepened. Inside, two people who'd survived the darkness chose to build something in the light. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be simple. But it would be theirs. And sometimes, that was enough. Sometimes, that was everything. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a moment to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more stories like this.